As our parents departed, leaving my younger brother and me to our own devices, I presented him with an irresistible proposition that would usher in a series of thrilling adventures we would never forget. My name is Emily, and I never envisioned being caught in a situation like this. My younger brother Sam and I shared an unbreakable bond during our childhood. He was 5 years my junior, the one I always looked after, shielding him from bullies and aiding him with his studies. Yet, as the days unfolded, life started to pull us apart, guiding us down divergent paths. As I embarked on my college journey, I found myself stepping into the world of work, all the while Sam remained in high school, navigating the complexities of his own identity and aspirations. Our parents were perpetually occupied with their demanding careers, which afforded scant opportunity for family time. They were not neglectful, yet often seemed to be elsewhere. Once I reached the age where I could drive and manage household duties, I embraced a significant portion of the responsibility for Sam's care. It always seemed more like a privilege. Nevertheless, his presence was enjoyable, consistently cheerful and eager to satisfy. Caring for him was far from a burden. It was inherently woven into the fabric of our identity. Yet, everything transformed once I left home. At the age of 23, I found myself settling into a humble apartment on the other side of town. My time at home was far too fleeting, and a persistent guilt tugged at my heart each time I reflected on the moments I was losing in Sam's life. The once carefree little brother I cherished was slowly transforming into a stranger, and the pain of that realization cut deeper than I was willing to acknowledge. One weekend, our parents announced their plans to embark on a 3-day business trip, leaving Sam to navigate the solitude on his own. My mother called, her voice laced with worry. "Are you able to remain by his side?" she inquired. "He possesses the maturity to manage on his own, yet the reassurance of your presence would bring me comfort." My consent was largely driven by a sense of guilt. I didn't have any significant plans, and spending time with Sam would certainly help close the gap that had formed between us. Upon my arrival, Sam welcomed me at the threshold with his unmistakable crooked smile. "Ah, dear stranger, it feels like an eternity since our paths last crossed." With a playful jest, he pulled me into a brief embrace. "Indeed," I replied, a playful roll of my eyes accompanying my smile. "Have you been thinking of me?" With a grin, he stepped aside, inviting me to enter. The house looked precisely as it always had, immaculately maintained, yet infused with a subtle hint of lemon-scented cleanser. Stepping inside felt oddly surreal, reminiscent of my teenage years. On that initial evening, we devoted countless hours to reconnecting. Sam shared his thoughts on school, his friendships, and his aspirations for college, while I recounted the nuances of my own experiences. It was a comforting sensation, reminiscent of the past, to bridge the distance that had gradually emerged between us. For a time, it appeared as though nothing had shifted. However, as the night unfolded, I found myself becoming aware of nuances in Sam that had escaped my attention before. He had outgrown the days of being a small child. He had grown taller, his shoulders had broadened, and his voice had deepened. He radiated a calm assurance and a depth of experience that was unlike anything I had encountered before. Prior to this caught me off guard. The contrast between the boy I once shielded and the young man now sitting before me was a challenge to reconcile. Once the supper plates were cleared, Sam suggested we indulge in a film. He commented positively while browsing the selections on the television. "This isn't one of those tedious dramas you find pleasure in." "Excuse me," I remarked with a playful air of mock indignation. "My selection of films is nothing short of extraordinary." He wore a sly grin and ultimately selected a comedy we had watched countless times prior. As the opening titles rolled, he settled onto the couch beside me and extended his long legs, For a time, it was effortless to set aside all distractions and simply embrace the present. We shared laughter over well-worn jokes, reciting lines that rolled off our tongues with ease, and found ourselves in a rhythm that felt just right. Yet, from time to time, I caught Sam's gaze fixed upon me, not in a way that was strange or alarming, but with a fervor that sent a delightful flutter through my stomach. I brushed it aside, convincing myself that I was merely indulging in overanalysis. Ultimately, he is my brother. His gaze upon me was anything but peculiar. Was it present? As the final credits rolled, Sam arched his back and let out a long, satisfying yawn. "I'm going to get a drink," he said, rising from his seat and making his way to the kitchen. I lounged on the couch, lost in the endless scroll of my phone. Moments later, his voice resonated through the air. "Hello, Emily. Is there anything you would like?" "Certainly," I replied. "Astound me." Upon his return, he cradled 2 cups of cola in his hands. He settled back into his seat, inching a bit nearer, and offered me one. His knee grazed mine, sending an inexplicable thrill coursing through me. "Thank you," I uttered, striving to keep my voice steady. He offered a nonchalant shrug before bringing the glass to his lips for a sip. "No problem at all." We lingered in quietude for a time, the soft murmur of the television the sole companion in the stillness of the room. I attempted to concentrate on my phone, yet his presence proved to be oddly distracting. The warmth radiated from him, punctuated by the fleeting brush of his knee against mine. It was merely a fleeting thought, I reassured myself. It's merely a matter of closeness. Yet a small, restless fragment of my being lingered in doubt. With a sudden interruption, Sam spoke, shattering the stillness that enveloped them. "What is it like to live in the bustling metropolis? Do you ever feel a sense of longing for this place?" Though his question seemed nonchalant, the intensity of his gaze upon mine caused me to hesitate. Indeed, there are moments when I concede, all while gently placing my phone aside. Nevertheless, the circumstances have evolved. I take pleasure in having my own space, you see. He inclined his head and reclined against the couch. "I comprehend that. Yet, there's an undeniable oddity in your absence. The atmosphere feels subdued in your absence." A faint smile graced my lips. "Sometimes, I find myself longing to be here," I said. "Yet, circumstances evolve. Individuals mature over time." "Indeed," he murmured, his voice softer and tinged with a sense of longing. "I suppose they indeed do." The manner in which he articulated those words made my chest tighten. As the night unfolded, our conversation flowed effortlessly, filled with laughter over cherished memories and playful jabs about the little things. The peculiar tension that had enveloped me began to fade, giving way to a comforting warmth that brought back memories of how deeply I longed for this. His absence lingered in the air, a palpable void that echoed in my thoughts. As the weekend drew to a close and I found myself behind the wheel on my way home, a profound realization washed over me. Certain connections remain unbreakable, regardless of the distances that life may place between us. Sam was more than just my younger brother. He served as my steadfast anchor, the sole unwavering element in my being. As I navigated the familiar streets back to my apartment, a vow formed in my mind. I would not allow so much time to slip away before our next meeting. I stole a brief look at him, observing the depth of his focus. His forehead bore subtle creases, and a grave expression adorned his face, one I had never encountered before. It rendered him older and more mature, a transformation that left me feeling unsettled. In that fleeting instant, he transformed in my eyes from merely my younger brother to an individual, rich with his own struggles and intricacies. The weight of that knowledge unsettled me, prompting a subtle shift as I sought to break the stillness that enveloped us. "Indeed," I responded, maintaining my tone. Fear not, light. Your departure is just around the corner. The experience of college brings with it the promise of new friendships and a lifestyle that is refreshingly different. Maybe, he replied with a casual shrug, but it lacks the same essence. You have always been a person I could confide in, even during the most challenging times. I furrowed my brow once more. What do you imply? He momentarily diverted his gaze, drifting down to the floor before bringing it back to me. Once my father began his full-time job and my mother became increasingly occupied, I sensed that I was largely left to navigate things by myself. Yet your presence was a constant. You simplified everything. His words struck me with a force I couldn't ignore, and waves of shame surged through me. I was completely unaware of the profound effect my absence had on him, of the extent to which he had depended on me without ever voicing it. I offered my apologies, Sam. I murmured, unaware that you held such feelings. He shrugged once more, yet a subtle smile tugged at the corner of his lips. Your blame is misplaced. Though you were navigating your own challenges, it brings me joy to have you here now. I nodded, extending my hand to gently grasp his shoulder. Just a reminder that I'm always here for you if you ever need anything. Okay? Indeed, he remarked, a broader smile spreading across his face. I comprehend. For a brief moment, all felt as though it had returned to normal, flowing effortlessly and naturally. As my hand settled on his shoulder, the palpable tension in the air became strikingly evident. As our gazes intertwined, a subtle warmth flickered in his eyes, prompting me to instinctively pull back my hand. Heat flooded my cheeks as I quickly averted my gaze. In any case, I took a moment to clear my throat. It seems we ought to retire for the night, as the hour grows late. Indeed, he concurred, extending his limbs as he stood. An excellent notion. He approached the steps, halting at the base to cast a glance back at me. Sweet dreams, Emily. Good night, I said, attempting a smile as he ascended the stairs. With a soft sigh, I became aware that I had been holding my breath all along. My thoughts swirled in disarray, and an unsettling notion lingered that something had shifted between us. Yet I found myself unable to identify the precise nature of that change. I switched off the television and made my way to the kitchen to wash my glass. The house lay enveloped in an unusual stillness, the only sound a soft, persistent hum emanating from the refrigerator, punctuating the silence. I lingered by the window, observing the graceful dance of tree silhouettes in the soft glow of the moonlight. Thoughts surged through my mind, a whirlwind of ideas that eluded my grasp. As I finally settled into bed, sleep eluded me, and I found myself tossing and turning. I lay awake for what felt like an eternity, gazing at the ceiling, attempting to unravel the strange unease that had enveloped my surroundings. Sam's words, his lingering gazes, the manner in which he spoke to me, everything felt imbued with meaning, yet I found myself at a loss to articulate the reason. The following morning, I stirred from sleep to the delicate strains of music wafting up from the kitchen. As I propped myself up, still enveloped in the haze of sleep, I glanced at the clock and was taken aback by the hour. The sun had ascended to its zenith. I hastily donned my attire and descended the stairs, drawn by the alluring melody that filled the air. In the kitchen, Sam hummed a melody from the radio, skillfully preparing breakfast. He wore a simple t-shirt and sweatpants, his hair tousled from a night of rest. He evoked memories of the little boy I once playfully teased and nurtured, yet there was something distinctly different about him. His age and newfound confidence took me by surprise. "Good morning." As I approached, he looked up and greeted me warmly. "I prepared eggs. Care for a taste?" "Of course," I responded, taking a seat at the table. "Thank you." He placed a dish before me and settled into the chair opposite mine. His effortless smile rendered it challenging to maintain concentration on my own thoughts. For a time, we dined in tranquil seclusion, the gentle sunlight pouring through the windows, casting a warm, golden hue throughout the space. "This is good," Sam stated abruptly, shattering the stillness that enveloped them. "Your presence evokes a sense of nostalgia, reminiscent of days gone by." I nodded, a subtle smile playing on my lips. "Indeed, it does." Yet, as the words left my lips, an unsettling feeling lingered, hinting that all was not as it seemed. The once fluid bond we cherished had transformed into something I struggled to articulate. A sensation gripped my chest, sending my thoughts spiraling into a frantic whirl. It was a truth I could not evade, regardless of the effort I put forth to resist it. The morning slipped away in a haze of trivial duties and familiar patterns. Yet the unspoken tension between us lingered on. Sam seemed completely at ease, whistling to the tunes on the radio as he organized the kitchen, while I busied myself with whatever caught my attention. Is there a way to keep my mind from drifting? Each glance, each utterance shared between us carried a weightier significance than ever, yet I found myself unable to articulate the reason behind it. As lunch approached, a sense of agitation washed over me. Sam suggested we watch another movie, yet the thought of remaining still for that long filled me with unease. "How about we go for a stroll?" I proposed the idea that a breath of fresh air might aid in clearing my thoughts. Sam smiled broadly. "That sounds wonderful. Allow me a moment to retrieve my sneakers." We ventured outside, strolling through the serene neighborhood, embraced by towering trees and meticulously manicured lawns. In that place, time appeared to stand still, as if the world outside had forgotten to move on. We engaged in a relaxed dialogue, sitting side by side, discussing his classes, my job, and the neighbor's exuberant dog. It felt instinctive once more, as if we were rediscovering a melody long forgotten. Amidst our laughter and conversation, I found myself acutely aware of the subtle brush of his shoulder against mine and the way his gaze seemed to linger when he believed I was oblivious. I reassured myself that it was merely my imagination taking flight. Yet, beneath the surface, I found myself unable to escape the truth. As we neared the park at the end of the street, the sight of the swings and the weathered basketball court stirred a wave of nostalgia, transporting me back to the carefree days of my youth. Sam perched on one of the swings, his long legs nearly grazing the earth, and beckoned for me to come over. For a moment, I paused, contemplating the decision, before easing myself into the swing next to him. The metal chains emitted a gentle creak as I leaned back, surrendering to the moment. "This place remains untouched," he remarked, his voice laced with a sense of nostalgia. "Indeed," I murmured, as the memories washed over me like a tide. The atmosphere was thick with unvoiced sentiments, laden with a tension that eluded my ability to articulate. With a faint smile, I carried on. "It seems as though we spent a significant portion of our childhood in this place." He chuckled in response. "That's because we did. You persistently urged me to let you push me on the swings, despite my assurances that I was perfectly capable of doing it on my own." I returned the smile, for you would invariably leap off and find yourself nestled in the mud. He let out a soft laugh, shaking his head in amusement. "Mother insisted you promise to shield me from any mischief." His laughter dwindled, and his eyes turned toward the horizon, his demeanor shifting to one of solemnity. "Your vigilance for my well-being was unwavering." Naturally, I replied with kindness. "You are my younger sibling." He paused, enveloped in silence. His expression held a thoughtful quality, and his eyes narrowed just a touch. Then, with a hint of hesitation, he inquired, "Do you ever ponder how different things might have unfolded if Dad had been more present?" The inquiry caught me by surprise. I gazed at him, uncertain of how to respond. After a brief moment of reflection, I eventually replied, "I suppose, but you turned out quite well, you know. Your self-worth does not hinge on his approval. Take pride in who you are." Our gazes locked in an unspoken exchange. For a fleeting moment, the unguarded vulnerability reflected in his eyes pierced through me, causing a sharp ache in my chest. "Thank you," he murmured gently. "This holds significant importance." For a time, we remained silent, letting the stillness envelop us. The sounds from the park echoed softly in the atmosphere. Whispers of rustling leaves, the melodic chatter of birds, and a delicate squeak emanating from the swings. It was tranquil, yet the heaviness of his earlier remarks lingered in the air between us. Sam finally stood up, brushing the dust off his slacks. "We should return," he suggested. "The chill is settling in." "Indeed," I replied, standing up and matching his pace. The journey home felt more protracted than it typically did. The silence that enveloped us had transformed from a source of solace to a weighty presence, laden with unspoken thoughts that eluded our grasp. As we arrived at the house, a sense of anticipation washed over me, urging me to seek solace in the guest room and find clarity in my thoughts. Yet Sam envisioned a different path. "Let us engage in a game." "A game?" he proposed, a mischievous smile playing on his lips as he grasped the controller. "This evening, the one who falls short will take on the task of washing the dishes." "You're on?" I replied, a sense of joy bubbling within me at the prospect of a welcome distraction. For the next hour, we immersed ourselves in the game, fueled by spirited competition and fits of laughter that lifted our spirits. As is often the case, Sam triumphed in the majority of the rounds, yet I managed to snatch a few victories, much to his chagrin. Ultimately, the tension had eased, if only for the moment. "Text, I am still not doing the dishes," I declared, folding my arms in a mock display of disdain as we powered down the console. He let out a hearty laugh. "Very well, I shall grant you a reprieve on this occasion." The remainder of the evening unfolded in a manner that was decidedly unremarkable. We shared a meal, exchanged thoughts on our plans for the following day, and then engaged in our usual evening routine. Yet, as the home settled into silence and the night deepened, the strange atmosphere from earlier crept back in. Even with my utmost attempts to dismiss it, the sensation that something was shifting between us lingered, refusing to be ignored. Later that night, as I reclined in bed, my gaze fixed upon the ceiling, a faint squeak echoed from the floor just beyond my chamber. My heart raced, and I halted, attuned to the soft tread drawing near. Then came a gentle rap. Emily Sam's voice carried a hint of hesitation. I propped myself up, my heart racing in my chest. "May I enter, please?" With a moment of uncertainty, I cast my gaze upon the clock. The hour was late, and the house lay in stillness, save for the soft, persistent hum of the refrigerator echoing from downstairs. "What seems to be the issue?" I wish to have a conversation with you." His voice barely rose above a whisper. With a gentle exhale, I let my legs dangle over the edge of the bed. "All right, step inside." The door creaked open, and Sam stepped inside, his expression inscrutable as he closed it softly behind him. He leaned against it for a moment, then crossed the room and settled on the edge of the bed. "What is unfolding?" I asked, maintaining a calm tone even as a tight knot of anxiety twisted within me. He hesitated, his eyes fixed on the ground, shoulders tense and unyielding. At last, he confessed, "I have been reflecting deeply on our relationship, concerning—" "What do you mean to me?" His words sent my heart into a frenzy, and I fought to keep my expression composed. "Sam, you are my sibling." I spoke with care. "Indeed, we hold great significance for each other. That is the essence of family." It is not merely that he spoke in a voice barely rising above a whisper. Your unwavering presence in my life has been unparalleled. You understand me, Sam. I began to speak, but he cut me off. I don't want to create any tension, he responded hastily. Yet, I must convey the depth of your significance in my life. I can hardly imagine a world devoid of your presence. His words lingered in the atmosphere, heavy with significance that eluded my understanding. As the unspoken tension peaked, I fixed my gaze upon him. My thoughts are in disarray. Sam, I finally whispered, my tone soft yet resolute. This is incredibly challenging for me to process. His expression wavered, and his brows knitted together in concern. I'm not trying to make things difficult, he said with a serene demeanor. I had to express it to release the weight within. I inhaled deeply, my fingers weaving through my hair as I sought to quiet the tumult of my mind. I admitted, my voice laced with hesitation, that you hold great significance in my life as well. Yet we share the bond of siblings, Sam. We have consistently cared for each other, for that is the essence of family. His eyes grew somewhat dim. It transcends mere words, he replied, his voice trembling. Indeed, it is. I shook my head, feeling a tightening in my chest. You are simply perplexed, I remarked. Yet, as the words escaped my lips, they resonated with emptiness. We have endured much together, particularly with our parents frequently absent. This feeling of closeness is a natural response. He contended that it was not a matter of confusion. His voice has taken on a more tranquil quality. This encapsulates my emotions. While I recognize that this situation deviates from the ordinary, I cannot feign its absence from reality. I rose from my bed and started to pace around the small room, striving to unravel the tangled threads of my thoughts. My thoughts swirled in a chaotic dance, caught in the tension between the urge to offer comfort and the nagging feeling that all was not well. I turned to him and spoke with conviction. Sam, we must find a way to move beyond this discussion. It is unjust to any of us. His expression faltered. A fleeting shadow of anguish crossed his features. He murmured, I'm not asking for anything. I felt it was important to share this with you. The genuine earnestness in his voice rendered me speechless. I inhaled deeply and settled back into my seat, my shoulders drooping beneath the burden of the moment. I find myself at a loss for words. I whispered my confession. There is no obligation to do so. He infused his voice with strength. The weight of my secret became too much to bear, and I knew I had to share it. The atmosphere in the room was stifling. The atmosphere hung heavy, making each breath a laborious task. The tension that hung between us was nearly unbearable. I longed to mend it all. I longed to journey back to a simpler era, yet I found myself at a loss for the way forward. We must discover a path to progress. At last, I declared, you are my brother, Sam. That will remain constant. He nodded slowly, yet the uncertainty lingered in his eyes. I cannot bear the thought of losing you. He admitted, you are the sole individual who truly comprehends me. I will not be lost to you. I offered him solace, my voice steady and soothing. Nevertheless, it is essential that we define our limits. We mustn't allow ourselves to dwell on it any longer. The ensuing silence was heavy, yet it seemed necessary. After a prolonged silence, Sam stood up, his movements deliberate and measured. I'm sorry, he murmured. I had no intention of creating. You feel uneasy. I recognized that my reply was soft, my demeanor warm. I'm not angry with you, but we must tread carefully, Sam, for our own sake. He nodded again, lingering at the threshold. He lingered for a moment, caught in a silent struggle between the desire to remain and the urge to depart. As he emerged, the soft click of the door shutting behind him brought a sense of relief. Yet the constriction in my chest lingered on. I lingered in that moment, time stretching endlessly as I gazed into the void surrounding me, grappling with the reality of what had just unfolded. Though I struggled to find the words, an undeniable shift had occurred between us. A shift was in the air, and I could sense it deeply. The subsequent morning unfolded in an unusual stillness. The whole house seemed transformed, as though the very air had shifted while we slept. Sam did not come share breakfast with me. I certainly did not compel him. I assured myself that he, much like I, required some space, and that eventually, everything would revert to its usual state. Yet, as time slipped away, the silence that enveloped us grew denser, increasingly challenging to overlook. As the afternoon unfolded, I resolved to initiate a conversation. I found him in his room, perched on the edge of his bed, lost in the world of sound with headphones enveloping his ears. Upon noticing my knock, he removed them and offered me a subtle, hesitant smile. "Greetings," I mentioned my intention to enter. "How are you managing these days?" He shrugged, his gaze drifting down to the floor. "I am fine," he mumbled. I settled beside him, ensuring there was a comfortable distance between us. "I acknowledge that this feels unusual at the moment, yet I have no desire for it to remain so. It is essential that we come to a resolution on this matter." "I don't want it to be like this," he murmured, his voice scarcely rising above a whisper. "I find myself uncertain about how to approach this dilemma." "We'll figure it out," I said to him, a faint smile playing on my lips. "Though the journey may be lengthy, we shall arrive at our destination." He gazed at me, his demeanor becoming gentler. "Thank you," he said with sincerity, "for remaining calm. I am your sister," I declared with unwavering certainty. "I will always stand by your side." After days of relentless strain, a faint sense of relief began to emerge, though it remained tenuous at best. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, shifting toward more cheerful topics: his classes, his friends, and the weekend plans that lay ahead. As I stepped out of his room, a subtle shift in the weight on my chest occurred. Yet as the house fell into silence once more that night, an unsettling sense lingered, suggesting that all was not as it should be. The echoes of Sam's words, his emotions, and the events of the past few days swirled in my thoughts, instilling a sense of unease and trepidation within me. Regardless of the reassurances I offered myself, deep down, I understood that this was far from finished. That night, the home lay in silence, yet my thoughts were anything but tranquil. I found myself wide awake, gazing at the ceiling as thoughts swirled chaotically in my mind. Sam's words echoed repeatedly, his honesty, his openness, and the weight of all he had confessed. I repeatedly reassured myself that normalcy would eventually return, that this was merely a challenging phase we would overcome. Yet, beneath the surface, uncertainty lingered within me. As the clock struck midnight, I became aware of soft footsteps echoing in the hallway. My heart tightened with each step that drew nearer, eventually stopping just outside my door. I propped myself up, stilled my breath, and lingered in anticipation. Suddenly, a soft, tentative knock echoed through the silence. As on the previous night, Emily Sam's voice drifted softly, almost lost in the stillness. I inhaled deeply, striving to maintain my composure. "Indeed," I murmured. "May I enter?" My heart raced with fervor. With a moment's pause, I cast my gaze upon the clock. The hour was late, and the house lay shrouded in darkness and silence. Yet an undeniable force within me compelled me to accept him. "Very well," I responded gently. "Step inside." With a soft creak, the door swung open, and Sam stepped inside. He seemed to carry an air of discomfort. His hands delved deeply into the confines of his pockets. His shoulders curved inward, a subtle indication of his demeanor. He lingered for a moment, hesitating before shutting the door softly, leaning against it for a brief respite, then making his way to perch on the edge of my bed. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I come to the understanding that my presence is unwarranted. It's perfectly acceptable," I uttered swiftly, even as my heart raced. "What occupies your thoughts?" He hesitated once more. His gaze was anchored to the ground. "I've been reflecting on my earlier words, and I can't shake the feeling that I may have complicated matters." "You didn't," I stated firmly, leaning forward. "Sam, I assured you that we would find a solution, but it requires patience." "I understand," he replied, his voice trembling. "But it's difficult. I find myself ensnared in the labyrinth of my thoughts, uncertain of the path that leads to freedom." I extended my hand and softly grasped his shoulder. I whispered to him, reassuringly, that he was not alone. "Together we shall navigate this journey." He lifted his eyes, and our gazes intertwined. His gaze held an intensity that created a strange tightening in my chest. "You have always been there for me," he replied, his voice thick with emotion, "particularly in moments when no one else stood by my side. I can hardly imagine a world devoid of your presence." "Text, you needn't dwell on it," I remarked, maintaining a steady tone. "I shall remain right here." Silence enveloped us for what felt like an eternity. The silence that enveloped us was dense, laden with emotions that remained unspoken. Sam's expression was unguarded and exposed, a sight I had never encountered before. I found myself utterly speechless. "I just want everything to be fine again," he said, his voice quivering ever so slightly. "I cannot bear the thought of losing you." I assured you wouldn't, though my voice now wavered. "However, Sam, it is essential for us to establish some boundaries. This cannot be allowed to dominate our lives." He nodded slowly, a troubled look crossing his face. He remarked, "I understand that I am making an effort." "I understand your feelings," I replied gently, "and that is what truly counts." The atmosphere in the room shifted, not easing entirely, but transforming into something less oppressive. Sam remained still, contrary to my expectations of his departure. Instead, he stood still, his gaze locked onto mine as though searching for something elusive. He struggled to identify the exact source. The atmosphere surrounding us crackled with energy, each inhalation heightened by the stillness that enveloped us. After a brief pause, I addressed the situation with a steady yet resolute voice. "Sam, we can't continue to tread the same path endlessly. This situation is detrimental to us both." "I understand," he murmured, his voice barely audible. "But I'm uncertain about how to move beyond it, release it." His honesty took me by surprise, and I instinctively leaned in, as though closing the physical space between us could also bridge the emotional divide. "Perhaps," I proposed with consideration, "you must confront it directly." He furrowed his brow, a trace of confusion etched upon his features. "Could you clarify what you mean?" With a fluttering heart, I paused, searching for the right words to express my thoughts. At times, my words flowed with a deliberate slowness. The sole path to progress lies in confronting it head-on. To confront it completely, his eyes remained fixed on me, his brow furrowed in contemplation as he absorbed my words. "What do you mean by that?" His voice faded into uncertainty. I gently interjected that perhaps harboring everything within isn't beneficial. One must permit oneself to experience it profoundly before truly moving forward. His expression unveiled a glimmer of understanding. "Emily, everything will be all right." I offered him quiet reassurance, gently placing my hand over his. "This is but a fleeting instant, nothing beyond that." At first, he stood motionless, his gaze locked onto mine, the weight of the moment pressing heavily upon us both. He leaned in, a hint of hesitation in his posture. Our lips touched in the gentlest caress, tentative and fleeting, yet brimming with feelings that eluded our ability to articulate. It ended as suddenly as it had started, creating a weighty silence that felt suffocating. Sam averted his gaze, a blend of astonishment and worry. "I extend my sincerest apologies," he stammered, his voice wavering with uncertainty. "I did not intend to say no, Sam." I interrupted him, maintaining a steady tone. "Refrain from expressing regret." He locked eyes with me, searching for meaning in my expression. A subtle smile graced my lips as I murmured, "Damn, I have a rather dashing brother." I surprised myself by noting that he took a momentary pause. He leaned in once more, silence enveloping the moment. This time, the kiss unfolded with a depth and certainty that felt like a shared commitment to explore the boundaries we had only just begun to traverse. We paused momentarily before I shifted my hand, propelling us past the threshold we had previously breached. His eyes grew wide, mirroring my astonishment, yet neither of us took a step back. We allowed it to unfold in silence, surpassing anything either of us could have anticipated. Our actions were undeniably reckless, and I found myself compelled to acknowledge it. Yet, in that instant, everything seemed flawless. It was an exhilarating experience. As the dust finally settled, we found ourselves lying there, fully cognizant of the events that had just unfolded. "Incredible," Sam inhaled, breaking the stillness. I find myself at a loss for thoughts. "It's all right," I replied, interrupting him with a sense of urgency. "The task is complete, and we are free to proceed." He steadied me, his gaze heavy with unvoiced questions that lingered in the air between us. He rose with measured grace, each movement intentional, as though wary of breaking the delicate bond we shared. "Good night, Emily," he murmured softly. "Wishing you a peaceful night," I remarked, watching him exit the room. As the door clicked shut behind him, I exhaled a shaky breath, my thoughts swirling in a tempest of uncertainty. A brief instant, yet it transformed everything. A boundary had been breached, potentially guiding us toward understanding or complicating the situation even more. Uncertain of what lay ahead, I found myself, for the first time in days, grasping a flicker of hope that we might navigate this journey side by side. The following morning, an unmistakable sense of change lingered in the air, as if the house had shed a weight and embraced a newfound lightness. Sam sat down with me for breakfast, his demeanor noticeably more at ease than it had been in recent days. Our plans unfolded in a casual conversation, the dialogue flowing effortlessly and naturally. It seemed a step forward, and I clung to that hope as the hours slipped by, until at last, the moment arrived for me to leave. Sam guided me toward the door. The absence of Josh from home lingered, offering a peculiar sense of solace. I found myself navigating this journey on my own. "We appreciate your presence," Sam whispered, his smile, soft yet sincere. It held great significance. "I'm pleased I made that choice," I replied. "I shall return shortly, understood? Let us continue our conversation and find a resolution together." He nodded, a glimmer of hope illuminating his expression. "Indeed, we shall." As I pulled away, the house slipped from view in my rearview mirror, yet the burden of all that had transpired lingered heavily upon me. Though I understood the challenges that lay ahead, a sense of progress enveloped me for the first time in ages, and that alone was sufficient for the moment. Upon returning to my apartment, the rhythm of life settled back into its familiar cadence. Yet, despite my efforts to erase that night from my memory, the vivid recollection lingered on. Thoughts of Sam occupied my mind more than I was willing to acknowledge, as I pondered how he was managing and whether he had achieved the clarity he sought. A couple of weeks passed, and my phone buzzed with a message from him. "Greetings. Once more, I wish to express my gratitude. The path ahead appears more defined now. I find myself in a state of okayness. I studied the message intently, allowing the words to linger in my mind before crafting a response. Joy fills my heart. Just embrace each step as it comes. Very well. I will always be present whenever you require my support. He replied swiftly, I am confident that I will be all right. It wasn't exactly an ending, yet it marked a step forward. And that sufficed for the moment. Yet, I can't shake the feeling of uncertainty that lingers within me as I ponder the thoughts of those around me. Was it a mistake? Is there anything I ought to lament? Is guilt something I should carry? I'm uncertain. I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments section. It would hold great significance. My sincere gratitude to you.